Hey, look at that! Another Starbucks coffee shop opening in Singapore.
Yeah, do you know that Starbucks is the largest coffee house company with over 17,800 shops in 49 countries? In Singapore, there are already 67 branches.
67? That's a lot!
This is all thanks to globalization.
What's globalization about?
It is where the world has shrunk, resulting from improvements in transport and communication. Globalization has brought about benefits and disadvantages.
I'm interested in economics. How does globalization affect Singapore's economy?
Before I can answer that, it is important to know the characteristics of Singapore's economy. What do you know about it?
It's small, has no natural resources, weak consumer market, but very open.
You are right. Singapore achieves robust economic growth by diversifying into high value-added sectors such as banking services and R&D and being receptive to free trade.
I've read about Singapore's trade policy. It's based on two principles, which are free market system and an outward orientation.
Singapore is also very committed to trade. She participates in multilateral trade forums like Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation and the Association for Southeast Asian Nations Free Trade Area.
And do you know that the average trade to GDP ratio is 273%?
Whoa, that's a big amount.
Get a better view now. Shall we first talk about the positive impacts of globalization on the Singapore economy?
First of all, there's free trade.
I'm sure most people know about that.
But do you think they know the theory behind free trade?
I don't think so. Please explain.
Okay. This theory is called theory of comparative advantage. Countries that trade freely have to specialize according to this law. They export their CA goods for non-CA goods. Comparative advantage means that the production of a certain good by a country is more efficient than another. This country uses less resources like manpower and raw materials.
How does trade happen then?
Let me use this analogy, which consists Korea and Japan, to explain the theory further. For example, Japan has a comparative advantage over Korea in the production of cars, while Korea has a comparative advantage over Japan in the production of rice. Therefore, it only makes sense that Japan should specialize in the production of cars, since she is efficient in that, while Korea specializes in producing rice. There is no point producing goods that need more resources, right? Then both countries exchange the goods that need more resources to produce. This means that Japan should import rice from Korea, while Korea imports cars from Japan. Mutually beneficial trade is created.
I see.
Yes. How do you think this is related to Singapore then?
Since Singapore has no natural resources, she depends largely on international trade.
Yeah. Singapore consistently invests in technology and develops human capital to adapt to trade.
For example, organizations like Human Capital Singapore are established and provide companies advice to increase workers' efficiency. The building of the Singapore Technological Park also contributes to the manufacturing of IBM computer-related technology worldwide.
Besides that, Singapore's CA lies in high-end electronic products like data processing machines and telecommunication equipment. Her manufactured goods are demand inelastic since they are seen as a necessity.
Why?
Because in the era of globalization, people communicate with each other using telecommunication equipment.
Then how does Singapore benefit from free trade and achieve high economic growth?
Singapore has high export revenue as a result. Since the bulk of her export demand comes from Asia, Asia's growth can sustain Singapore's export performance.
What's another positive impact?
Increased availability of raw materials and consumer goods.
Isn't it very beneficial to Singapore?
Yes, but let me explain the theory behind it first.
Okay, go ahead.
With globalization, there will be a development in infrastructure and transport,
which increases the mobility of goods. More goods are transported from one place to another in a single trip.
Yeah. When transport cost is reduced, cost of production is lowered. There will be a higher net exports revenue due to more profits collected.
How will it benefit the economy?
Aggregate demand increases through the increase in net export revenue, and aggregate supply increases through the increased productive capacity and lowered cost of production.
Consumers can gain as they can buy imported goods at lower prices. There will also be a wider variety of goods from all over the world due to better accessibility from one place to another. That's a great enhancement in consumer welfare.
Correct. How do you make this link with Singapore?
Singapore is very dependent on imports.
Like machinery equipment, mineral fuels, chemicals, food, and consumer goods from other countries.
Wow, that's a wide variety.
Yeah, Singapore also imports from many countries. The top 4 import partners are Malaysia, USA, China, and Japan. Malaysia already makes up 14.4% of Singapore's total imports. The increased availability of imports results in greater potential growth of the Singaporean economy. This is very beneficial
to both Singapore and her trading partners.
Also, Singapore's GDP per capita has been increasing for the past 10 years. The national income acquired to each person is said to be generally increasing. The material aspects of life has increased since more Singaporeans can buy more goods.
I've seen many transnational corporations in Singapore, like McDonald's, Starbucks, and Billabong.
Yes, what about it?
Is this an economic impact of globalization on Singapore too?
You are right. This is known as attracting overseas firms to invest in the country, which is foreign direct investments.
What do FDI consist? It sounds abstract.
FDI consists of new technologies, capital, processes, products, and management skills. They provide a strong impetus to economic development by raising the AD and AS of the economy.
How will you explain that?
AD is increased through the following: increased consumption expenditure by the foreigners, increased government expenditure, for example, through building houses to accommodate the foreigners, and increased investment. The increase in AS is due to increase in the country's productivity, since there is a skill transfer from the foreigners to the locals.
I've heard of this term called greenfield investment. What does it mean?
It is a form of FDI where overseas companies venture into countries by constructing new facilities and creating new long-term jobs for the locals.
Wow, high FDI can really benefit Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore has got all it takes to be attractive to foreign investors. Her economic policies are sound and her political situation is stable.
For instance, the government has spent 390 million in training unemployed workers so that they remain employable. Singapore also has a low corporate tax rate of 17% to attract foreign investors.
Other ASEAN economies do not possess these favorable traits. They have high corporate tax rates which put investors off. For example, Thailand has a tax rate of 30%.
No wonder so many transnational corporations from USA and UK offshore their productions to Singapore.
As of 2009, the stock of investment by US companies in manufacturing and service sectors have reached $76.86 billion.
Singapore also has an influx of foreigners nowadays. Is this a result of an open door policy to attract foreign talent to overcome a small aging population?
Correct. Singapore has the most motivated labor force in Asia Pacific and the easiest country for people to migrate to. These qualities helped Singapore to achieve a record high economic growth of 15%, the fastest pace in Singapore.